Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works. And today we're back at work finally, although, well, I've been working on it a little bit on and off in the background, but we're getting back to work on our CP Express and Transport A train. And if you're new to this project, or it's been so long since you watched the first video, which is certainly understandable seeing as it was way back, I think at the end of summer I started this. This is one of two or three Ford Louisvilles that were based at the Ottawa terminal of CP Express and Transport in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was the early 90s where I worked as a security guard for a couple years at CP Express and Transport. Now, I'm 98% sure that this photo was actually taken at that Ottawa terminal at the maintenance facility that I was at the back. I didn't take the picture. I found it online. I mean, hey, the early 90s, it was still in the days of film where if you had a roll of 24 in your camera, you were very careful about what you took pictures of. And I never thought I was going to be, having an online channel on something called YouTube back in the early 90s. So, yes, I was a security guard and used to guard these things all the time. This is the cab that we're building, and it's probably about 70% done. And this is one of the trailers. And you heard me say A train. There's two basic kinds of multiple trailer combinations you can have. The first one is the A train, and an A train is three pieces. You have the first trailer, you have the second trailer, and those trailers are held together with this piece of equipment. Sometimes it's called a dolly, sometimes it's called a converter, sometimes it's called a bike, and I'm sure it's got lots of other names. Probably has some very impolite names. And this is a separate piece of equipment. As you can see, mine isn't quite finished yet. This hooks onto the first trailer, and then the fifth wheel grabs the second trailer. CP Express had a lot of these, and they also had something called B trains. Now, for a B train, each of these short trailers has a four-wheel bogie, not a two-wheel. And with that, the whole bogie slides back so that the front wheel is actually about here. And when it slides back, it exposes another fifth wheel that the second trailer can grab onto. The advantage of that is it's a lot more controllable. So this is the first trailer, and I finished this on... sorry, it's not finished. It's getting there. I was about 80% done this at the end of the last episode when I basically said, okay, we've got enough material here. This one is very similar to the way AMT intended it. I've painted it steel because I wanted it to be stainless steel. This is just overspray on the top. I think I might actually paint the roof of this one gray, just so there's a little bit less silver. CP Express and Transport trailers were either gray or they were natural metal, and they had a metal panel that stuck on here that had the CP Express and Transport logo. That's still to come. So in this particular episode, we're going to finish off this trailer, at least in terms of its basic assembly, and get a start on the second trailer. Maybe get that finished, we'll see. This one has a roll-up door. The other one is going to have the other one's going to be quite different than this, actually. It's still going to be 28 feet, but it is going to be quite a bit different. The sides have been painted steel. The panels have been painted Testors silver. I did use aluminum, but it ended up looking exactly like the steel, which wasn't what I wanted. I wanted there to be a difference in the sheen, and I think there is as I rock it back and forth. So this is basically what I was looking for. So we're going to put some flat gray on the roof, and then I'm going to come back and put a bunch of rusty weathering on it. Not on the stainless steel, because of course that doesn't rust. So while I've been trying to get trailer number 1 to some sort of level of completion, I've been working on the mechanical bits of trailer number 2. You can see I've got my wheels together here. They look pretty beautiful. They're going to look pretty skizzy by the time I'm done. A lot of rust to go in there. And we've got the landing gear put together. And of course we have the suspension as well. And these two parts here I'm just going to hit with the same sort of flat gray I used on the first trailer, and then I'm going to rustify them. I'm not going to be putting them on the underside of the trailer right away like I did on the other trailer, because that trailer is going to be built quite a bit differently. I'm going to be using the floor, and that's about it from the kit. The rest of it's going to be kit bashed. So I will be showing you in a little bit what that trailer is going to look like, and a tiny bit of footage that I have of one of those trailers. All right, so here's our underside rustified. And remember, just because there's I've dry brushed rust onto a spot, that doesn't mean that on the real truck that area was completely rusted through. What happens is a lot of it is rust staining caused from an outbreak of rust somewhere else, and a lot of it is just the salt and water get under the paint and just kind of blister it off. The steel is still fairly, like 90% there. So a lot of times people will see things from the Rust Belt that look totally rusted out, and they think, my God, is that still safe? Yeah, it's still safe. It just doesn't look pretty anymore. So the area around the bogie has more rust on it, and the area around the landing gear just behind where the tractor's wheels is rustier. I did not put any on to the top of the floor here, or the underside of the floor, because that's actually wood. Wouldn't have rusted. So this area is going to be having kind of a slimy, greasy finish put on it, because that, of course, is where the fifth wheel goes. If we look at the door should not be rusty, because these are wooden panels. Sometimes they have a very thin veneer of metal on them, but basically they have some bolts in a row, and you can see them here. They would rust, and there would be rust staining underneath it. So I've started painting the logo for the door. It still needs to have some black dry brushed on it, and of course we still need to put the reflectors on. And I still have to put the plate in here, which will have the trailer hitch and the glad hands on it there. So that's how our first trailer is looking. Maybe it'll be the second trailer. I don't know. It'll depend on my fancy at the time when I display it. So here's a quick shot of the wheels. You can see I didn't overdo it. Mostly you want the rust to be on the bolt heads and the nuts and things like that, because once you do them up once, you've already damaged any paint that may have been sprayed on it. Plus a little bit of rust staining and a couple marks on the wheels themselves. So now I'm ready to tackle the converter, or the dolly, or any sort of obscenity you choose to call it. And you can see me using Tester's rust here. And you can see me basically taking most of the paint off the brush here in the background. And I'm just going to test it here where nobody's going to see. Yep, that's pretty good. Now, if this rust seems extreme to you, then you haven't lived in the Rust Belt. All right, I've glued the fifth wheel on because it looks like it's basically just going to be level, which is fine. And you can see I've got some crusty rusties going on. Still need to mount the reflectors on this, as I do on the trailer here before. I'm going to be setting this trailer aside. Not going to be doing much else to it until I get the other trailer done But it is nice to know that we have the basics done here. So trailer number 2. All I'm going to be using is the floor, the wheels, and the mechanical bits. That's all I'm going to be using from the kit. And no, you can't have the other parts. I'm saving them for some possible future project. The trailer I'm going to be building, and I don't have very many good pictures of one. A lot of this I'm going from faulty memory. But basically, it's a smooth side trailer, and its a most unusual feature is the nose. Instead of having two little graceful curves here, this trailer has a 45-degree miter on the corners. It doesn't come all the way to a point. Those corners are probably maybe about 2 feet. And this allows the trailer to be a smidge longer without interfering with the tractor or the other trailer when it turns. And the only reason I can think of that they might have done that, because it doesn't really give you much more usable volume. It doesn't mean you can put more skids inside it. But it may have been an early attempt at maybe making the trailer a little bit more aerodynamic. So we're going to be making completely new sides, a new roof, and a new nose. And we don't have to worry too much about this being the wrong shape because we're actually adding a little bit of material to it. And I'll just use some very heavy styrene to model this area here.
So here's a short piece of footage that I shot when I was actually filming some old construction equipment. 90% sure this is a CP Express and transport trailer. You can see it has the 45s on there. This one's medium. Some of them came to a bit more of a point, some were less. Of note is that vertical brown thing there, that's an anti-nose gear fitting. We're going to be putting that on our trailers. But this is the sort of trailer I'm modeling, and basically it shows you they really existed.
So they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So that was a little crappy piece of video. Maybe it was worth 250 words. I don't know, but hopefully you get the idea now of the shape that I want the front of this trailer to be. So I'm going to use some really heavy styrene I've got to basically make the plate, the 5th wheel pin that the pin goes on underneath, and it's going to actually point out at that 45 degree. So I'm going to be making this piece here. And then that will establish the entire shape of the trailer on the front. So here's step 1. This is our heavy plate that goes under the nose of our trailer. And it has the shape that we want to it. These are 45 degrees. And it's approximately 2 scale feet, each of these miters, which is approximately what it looked like to me. Once again, we're going by my faulty memory. And I wasn't quite as elaborate with the holes as AMT was, but I think you get the point. This hole here is where I'm going to be putting the pin. And it doesn't have to be as close to the end as here, because of course the miters provide clearance when the truck turns. Because otherwise, you'd either lose space inside the trailer, or you'd have to go with a longer combination, which wouldn't necessarily be legal. I will be gluing this onto here, probably with a shim, just to push it down a bit. The heavy nose plate is glued onto our floor, and I'm going to start working on the vertical panels here. I'm actually going to start with this one, and I'm going to work my way down the sides. And I've decided, based on the size of this trailer over here, this one, that I'm going to go about 11 centimeters in height. Not quite as deep as I need it, but I'm going to be putting this piece of channel. So I can focus on it here, and that's not going to focus. Anyway, I have a piece of evergreen styrene here. That's a channel. That's going to be glued to the bottom of the panels. All right, we have 2 long pieces, and you can probably just tell that I've glued the evergreen channel to the long side of each of these. That's going to be the bottom of our trailer side. And this piece here is going to be cut in two. It's going to be our little 45 pieces. And once again, I've got a piece of channel glued in there. And finally, this is going to be the nose of our trailer. E.g., the 45s are going to come off of this. And it's cut slightly wide because I want to bevel the edges so that our 45s come together well. And this hole right here, that's a pocket where the glad hands and the electrical connections are made. This particular trailer has a little bit of a pocket where those things fit inside. All right, hopefully it shows, but I've scribed two lines here going vertically, and they're basically to represent the seams where the metal has been brought together. Somewhere I have two scribers by Bare Metal Foil. I can't find either one of them. Not a big surprise if anyone's ever seen the chaos of my workshops. But I ended up using the back side of a number 11 X-Acto knife blade. That does work pretty good, but it is nice if you can actually get the proper scriber, which seems to be out of stock everywhere I look. So anyway, let's get to work on some more parts. And here's one of our 45s, and once again it has a seam running up the middle of it. And we've got our three nose pieces on here. And this is the shape I was looking for. This is what I wanted. The next thing is going to be our two side panels here. And they're going to need a lot of scribing, obviously. And the first thing I'll do is I'll actually sand the half angle onto here. Then I'll measure the whole length, cut it to size, and then I'm going to put those vertical scribes in. But yeah, this is what I was looking for. We've got one of our long sides on. And you should be able to see the vertical seams that I put in place. Now those are about 3 feet apart. How do I know they're supposed to be 3 feet apart? I don't know. It just looked about right. So the other side, I've got that cut to length, but I still have to do the scribing. And that's our second long side scribed. He's ready to be glued on. There we go. We've created a giant styrene box. So this trailer is going to have barn doors, and I want to give it some strength before I put a roof on it. This is some of that really heavy styrene I picked up a few years ago. I used it to extend the nose of the trailer, so I've already got it cut to width. So I'm just basically going to cut a plug the appropriate size. I'm going to glue it in place, and then my door detail is going to go on top of this. And since, as I said, it's going to be barn doors, I don't need to have like a recess for like you would if it was a roll-up door. Work continues apace. There was a couple of small seams I wanted to putty here on the front. That's been done. It's been sanded. And you'll notice that there's a fairly heavy-duty frame here up at the top. And that's accomplishing a few things. Number one, it's keeping it fairly rigid. Number two, it's giving me a large glue surface when I go to put my roof on. It's not just depending on just a thin side of the trailer. And the other thing is if I bring it up close, you can see that this framework is actually inset, so that when I put the roof on, that will create a channel, much the same as what came in the original kit. And so it's pretty much, it was a little bit of extra work, but it's accomplishing, 3 things. So this piece of styrene here on the top here, yes, it has a pretty red stripe on it. And that's because it was the only piece of styrene I had that was this thin. And it came from that material there. I've had that for probably almost 15 years. And one of the stores I worked at, the signs that we'd hang from the ceiling were actually made out of styrene sheet. They were huge. You're talking like, 4 feet by 8 feet. So, needless to say, when that particular special was over, those signs went home with me. You're probably wondering what kind of doors am I going to put on this. I've already said that it won't be the roll-up door. What I want to have on these is a set of barn doors. I seem to recall most of the trailers having barn doors. So I was thinking, hey, this could be really easy. I have a set of barn doors left over from the reefer kit that I used for my Father's Day project. So I found the part, and by the way, I mean, the dimensions for this trailer were based on the other one that came in the AMT kit. However, even though this trailer door is 1/25th scale, it's quite a bit wider, but it's not really tall enough. It's close, but it's the width that is really going to cause a problem because um, in order to use this, I'm going to have to basically make 2 slices, glue it back together again, and then clean up the seam. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to make my own doors, but I'm going to use this as a pattern for making some molds of these really nice handles and sliders and hinges and things like that. And then I'll apply those resin details to my own doors. So this sheet of styrene has got my 2 doors scribed on it. There's a fairly broad seam here in the middle and 3 tighter ones around the outside to represent our doors. I'm going to be applying my resin details to this. Okay, this represents probably 8 to 10 coats of mold builder. So let's peel these off, hopefully. And I'm going to leave these set a little bit longer, basically, so that the side that was against the plastic can, finish drying. Molds like this really only take just a couple drops of resin to fill. Now, in this shot, you can see I've got most of my castings mounted on my new doors. The pencil lines are on there just simply to line things up. Now, you may be thinking, wait a minute, all of your bars aren't there. Well, I didn't cast the entire length of bars, and I left these little stubs on to make it easier to line things up. This hinge down here fell on the floor. I can't find it. So right now I'm waiting for a new one to dry. So I'm going to be trimming all of these little stubs down, and then I'm going to be replacing those with styrene rod. And an advantage to making my own doors is the kit doors that came from the Mobius kit. It was only a twin bar locking system, and all the CP trucks I could remember had 4 bars. So at least this way I was able just to make extra parts and make a 4-bar system. So I'm still waiting for my last hinge to set up. I did cast one as a replacement, but I really didn't use enough resin and I got the mixture completely wrong. So it was kind of gooey. So while waiting for that, I installed all of my bars. Now these rotate, so they have to be a smaller diameter than the fittings they go through. And you do a lot of scratch building if you just automatically assume that you're going to have, styrene rod of the correct diameter. Well, guess what? I barely had enough. As a matter of fact, I had to scrounge over 3 workbenches to find just enough to do these up. I was like, do I really have to go out? Do I really have to leave the house to get one lousy little piece of styrene? So all I need is one more resin hinge, and these doors are going to be ready for paint. And there's all the parts on our trailer doors. I think I'm ready to give the nose and the tail and the sides some Tester's gloss gray. Right there, that's the same color I used on the roll-up door of the other trailer, and it's pretty close to what I remember the CP gray being. It was neither really dark nor really light, just somewhere in between. Okay, the light is a little better over at this workbench, so we're just taking a look at those barn doors with the double bar locking. I think that turned out pretty good. While waiting for the gray to dry, I'm going to mount the undercarriage, and then once this is dried, I'm going to be masking off the roof, and I'm going to be giving that some silver. So that's what our nose ended up looking like right here. Well, we're back at the spray booth. I've covered over the sides with some painter's tape. Hopefully it's not going to lift up any of the gray. That'd be tragic. I'd probably have to cry. I'm going to be painting the top of this Tester steel. I could use silver, but I just think that's going to be a little too bright. I want it to be a metallic silvery color, but I don't want anything that's too dark. And I'm also going to be painting the latching bars with the steel as well.
So I'm not sure where to put this. This is as good a place as any. Just an update on my sleep apnea condition. I've been using the CPAP machine for about a month and a half now. I'm sleeping way better. The quality of the sleep is better. I never had a problem with falling asleep. Let's make that clear. I've talked to a number of people who've used the machine. Quite a few of them have said, yeah, your sleep's going to immediately get better, but it could take quite a long time for your overall health to feel better. E.g., it took you a long time to get that sleep deprived. It could take you quite a long time before you feel better. So that's where we are. I've been using it faithfully, and it is making a difference.
So I'm calling it quits on this particular episode. We've got the weathering done on our outside post trailer, and the main structure of our smooth side trailer has been done. And as you can see, I've put some steel on the locking bars, because at least on the ones I remember, they were usually natural metal. Obviously, I still need to put some tail lights in. Well, both trailers, as a matter of fact, need all of their lights put on. Now, they are both going to end up having anti-nose dive gear installed, which is basically a crude post that can be slid down or flipped down. And that's just so that when you drive a forklift in to grab the first skid, the whole thing doesn't nosedive on you. And they're also going to get heaters, which is kind of a rectangular white box, and they'll have propane tanks slung underneath. For whatever reason, CP Express felt it was very important to have heated trailers in the winter. I don't ever really remember having to worry about them being heated. I don't know if they were used. I do know that the propane tanks were still full, because one night when I was not there, a trailer exploded. So, but we at least basically have both of the trailers together, and they are exactly the same width, by the way. I know this one seems narrower, but they're the same width. All right, so thanks for watching. Until next time, just keep on modeling.